The shop smelled like eucalyptus and lavender, and the particular kind of damp that comes from living 3 blocks from the Pacific Ocean. Sarah, Elena, but she hadn't been Elena in 3 years, arranged a bouquet of peonies and garden roses, her fingers moving through the stems with the automatic grace of someone who'd done this 10,000 times. It was Tuesday. Tuesdays were slow. The tourists hadn't arrived yet. The regulars had already picked up their weekly bunches. And the only sound was the radio playing some indie folk station she'd found on the first week she'd opened the shop and never changed. 3 years. 3 years since she'd driven north from Portland in a borrowed car with a duffel bag and a driver's license that wasn't hers. 3 years since she'd become Sarah Mills, florist, Cannon Beach resident, woman with no past and no future beyond the next bouquet. 3 years since she'd kissed her children goodbye in the only way she could, by not kissing them at all, by running barefoot down a dark street while they slept in their beds, by choosing to be dead rather than be killed. The bell above the door jingled. Sarah looked up, already smiling the customer smile, the one she'd practiced in the mirror until it felt natural. "Hi. Welcome in." The smile died on her face. He was standing in the doorway, filling it with his shoulders, his height, the particular way he had of making every room feel smaller. David, her husband, her ex-husband, technically, though the divorce papers had never been signed because you can't divorce a dead woman. He looked different, thinner. There was gray at his temples that hadn't been there 3 years ago. He was wearing a fleece jacket and jeans, not the tailored suits she remembered, and for half a second she thought maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was a stranger who just looked like him. Maybe her mind was playing tricks. Maybe... "Elena," he said, and his voice was the same. Exactly the same. The low, calm, reasonable voice that had told her he loved her seconds before he'd put his hands around her throat. "I've been looking for you for a long time." Her hands went cold. The peonies slipped from her fingers and fell to the counter, petals scattering. She didn't move. She couldn't move. Her body had done this before. Freeze. Not fight. Not flee. Just freeze. The way small animals do when a predator appears. "How did you—" Her voice came out a whisper. "How did you find me?" David stepped inside. He didn't close the distance between them. He stopped by the door, hands in his jacket pockets, the picture of non-threat. She knew this move. She'd seen it 100 times. The gentle approach, the respectful distance, the "I'm not here to hurt you" posture. It was the same posture he'd used the night he'd drugged her tea. The Cannon Beach Gazette, he said. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen and held it up. There was a photo, her, standing in front of the shop, holding a bouquet, smiling. The headline read, "Local florist brings big city blooms to the coast. They did a little piece on you last month. Facial recognition. Took the PI 6 months to run it against every database, but..." He shrugged. "Here we are." Sarah, Elena, stared at the photo. She remembered that day. The reporter had been nice, a kid from the local paper. And she'd said yes to the interview because she'd been lonely, because she'd wanted to feel like a real person instead of a ghost. And now that photo was the rope around her neck. "What do you want?" she said. Her voice was steadier than she felt. David put the phone away. He looked around the shop, at the flowers, the shelves, the little sign by the register that said Sarah's Blooms, and something crossed his face. Not anger. Something worse. Sadness, maybe. Or regret. "I want to talk," he said. "That's all." "Just talk. Talk about what?" "About the kids." He said it softly, the way you'd say something fragile. "Olivia's 10 now. She's in 4th grade. She plays soccer, defender, just like you said she would. Aiden is 7. He's in 1st grade. He still sleeps with that rabbit, the one you made him." Elena's throat closed. The rabbit. She'd made it when she was pregnant with Aiden, sewn it by hand, one floppy ear longer than the other, because she'd been crying while she stitched. She'd left it on his bed the night she ran, because she couldn't take it with her and she couldn't bear to leave it anywhere else. "They ask about you," David continued, "every day. When is Mommy coming home? Why did Mommy go away? I tell them what the doctors told me to tell them. That you were sick. That you couldn't help it. That you love them very much." He paused. "But they're getting older, Elena. They're starting to ask harder questions. And I can't keep lying to them." "You're lying to them right now," she said. "You're standing in my shop, pretending you're here for them. But we both know why you're here." David's face didn't change. "Do we? Because I think I'm here because my wife is alive, and my children have been told their mother is dead, and that's not okay. I think I'm here because I've spent 3 years in therapy, trying to become a man my kids can be proud of, and I want you to meet that man. I think I'm here because I've changed." The words hung in the air between them, thick as the smell of eucalyptus. Changed. He said it the way other people said "I'm sorry" or "I love you," like it was a key, like it should unlock something in her. But Elena had heard that word before. "I've changed. I'll be better. It won't happen again." She'd heard it the first time he'd pushed her, the second time, the 10th time. She'd heard it the night he'd put her in the bathtub and watched the water rise. "I don't believe you," she said. David nodded slowly, like he'd expected that. "I know you don't. And I don't blame you. I'm not asking you to believe me today. I'm asking you to let me prove it. I'm staying at the motel on Highway 101, room 12. I'll be here as long as it takes." He turned to leave. Then he stopped, hand on the door, and said without looking back, "They miss you, Elena, more than you can imagine. And I'm not the only one who's changed." The bell jingled. The door closed. He was gone. Elena stood behind the counter for a long time, her hands on the scattered peonies, her breathing shallow. The radio played on. Somewhere outside, a gull cried. The ocean was 3 blocks away, and she could hear it, the constant low roar, the sound she'd fallen asleep to every night for 3 years, the sound that had meant safety. Now it just sounded like distance. She picked up her phone. Her hands were shaking so badly she dropped it twice. She found the contact. M, for Marta, her sister, the only person in the world who knew she was alive, and pressed call. Marta answered on the first ring. Elena, is everything— He found me, Elena said. And then she was crying, not the quiet, controlled crying she'd perfected over 3 years, but the ugly, gasping kind. The kind that comes from a place so deep you forget it's there until someone opens the door. Marta, he's here. He's in Cannon Beach. He found me. Marta was quiet for a beat. Then, okay, listen to me. You pack a bag. You get in your car. You drive to my house. I'll wire you money. You change your name again. I can't, Elena said. The words came out between sobs. Marta, he showed me a picture of the kids. He said they ask about me every day. He said Aiden still sleeps with the rabbit. The line was silent. Then Marta said very quietly, Elena, don't do this. He hasn't changed. People like him don't change. He's going to hurt you, or worse. And then the kids will really have no mother. Elena looked at the peonies on the counter, at the petals scattered across the wood, at the little sign by the register that said Sarah's Blooms. She thought about 3 years of being Sarah, safe, quiet, alone. She thought about Olivia, 10 years old, playing defender on a soccer field. She thought about Aiden, 7 years old, sleeping with a one-eared rabbit. I know, she said. I know he hasn't changed. But Marta, I have to see them, just once. I have to know they're okay. Elena, just once. That's all. And then I'll leave. I promise. She hung up. She put the phone down. She walked to the door and flipped the sign from open to closed. She locked it. She leaned against the wood and closed her eyes. And for the first time in 3 years, she didn't feel like Sarah Mills. She felt like Elena Cole. And Elena Cole was terrified. But she was also, for the first time in 3 years, something else. She was a mother who missed her children. And that, she knew, was the most dangerous feeling of all. She let him in the back office. It was stupid. She knew it was stupid, but she also knew that if she didn't, he'd stand outside the shop all day, and someone would see him, and someone would ask questions. And Sarah Mills's carefully constructed life would start to unravel before she'd even decided what to do. The back office was small. A desk, a filing cabinet, a mini fridge, a window that looked out onto the alley. David sat in the folding chair she kept for vendors, and Elena sat behind the desk. And they were separated by 3 feet of scuffed linoleum and 3 years of silence. I don't know where to start, David said. He was looking at his hands, which was new. David had always looked at you when he talked, held your gaze until you looked away. Now he couldn't meet her eyes. Start with why you're here, Elena said. Her voice was cold. She was proud of that. Because I found you. Because I've been looking for you since— He stopped, swallowed. Since the funeral. Since I realized you weren't in that car. Elena's stomach tightened. The car, the Honda Civic she'd borrowed from a used car lot. The one she'd driven off the road into the Columbia River. The one the police had pulled up with a Jane Doe inside. An unhoused woman who'd died of exposure, whose body Elena's sister had helped identify as Elena, through a ring and a locket and a dental record that had been, conveniently, slightly corrupted. You knew, she said. Not a question, I suspected. The dental records were off. The ring. You never wore that ring. You hated it. I told the police it was yours because— He looked up and his eyes were wet. Because if it wasn't you, then you'd left me. And I couldn't. Elena, I couldn't handle that. So I let them believe it was you. Collected the insurance. I told the kids their mom was dead. And I went on with my life. He said it like a confession. Like it should mean something. Like saying it out loud made it better. And now? Elena said. Now you've decided to feel guilty? Now I've been in therapy for 3 years. I've been sober for 2.5. I go to meetings. I coach Olivia's soccer team. I help Aiden with his homework. I'm not the man you left, Elena. I'm not. People don't change that much in 3 years, David. I did. Because I had to. Because I woke up one morning and my daughter was asking me why mommy didn't love her anymore, and I didn't have an answer. Because my son doesn't remember his mother's face. Because I looked in the mirror and I saw my father, and I swore I would never become my father. His voice cracked. I almost became him, Elena, that night. He stopped, put his face in his hands. I know what I did. I know I tried to— I know. And I've spent 3 years trying to become someone who wouldn't do that again. And I think I am. I think I'm there. But I can't prove it to you in one conversation. I can only ask you to let me try. Elena stared at him. She wanted to believe him. God, how she wanted to believe him. Because if he'd changed, then she could go home. She could hold her children. She could be Olivia's mom and Aiden's mom and not a ghost in a flower shop on the Oregon coast. If he'd changed, then the last 3 years hadn't been for nothing. But her body remembered. Her body remembered the tea, the bathtub, the way the water had felt going up her chest, up her throat, the way David had stood in the doorway and watched. Her body remembered, and her body was not fooled by tears and therapy and 3 years of sobriety. What do you want from me? She said. Time, that's all. Time to show you I've changed. Time for you to see the kids. They need you, Elena. Olivia needs you. She's angry all the time. She fights with the other girls at school. She won't talk to me about it. The therapist says she needs her mother. He paused. Aiden draws pictures of a woman with no face. He says it's mommy. He doesn't remember what you look like. Elena's eyes burned. She blinked hard. She would not cry in front of him. She would not. I need to think, she said. Of course. Take all the time you need. I'm at the Surfside Motel, room 12. I'll be there as long as it takes. He stood up. Elena, thank you for talking to me, for not calling the police. I didn't call the police because if I do, I have to explain why a dead woman is running a flower shop in Cannon Beach. Don't mistake it for forgiveness. David nodded. He walked to the door. Then he stopped. One more thing. Can I send you a photo of the kids? Just so you can see them. You don't have to reply. Just see them. Elena hesitated. Then she nodded. He left. The bell jingled. The shop was quiet again, except for the radio and the distant ocean. Elena sat behind the desk for a long time. She thought about what he'd said, about therapy and sobriety and the man in the mirror, about Olivia's anger and Aiden's faceless drawings, about the insurance money he'd collected, $2 million, the policy he'd taken out on her life 6 months before that night. He'd kept it. He'd lived on it. He'd raised the kids on it. And he'd called that becoming a better man. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. A photo. It was a birthday party. Olivia's probably. There was a cake with 10 candles. Olivia was in a soccer jersey, grinning, her front tooth missing. Aiden was beside her, smaller, quieter, holding a stuffed rabbit with one floppy ear. Elena stared at the photo. She stared at it until her vision blurred. She saved it to her phone. She saved it to a folder she named Them, the only folder on her phone that wasn't about flowers or suppliers or rent. Then she called Marta. He showed me a photo, Elena said, of the kids. Aiden has the rabbit, Marta. He still has it. Elena, I know what you're going to say, but I have to see them, just once. I have to know they're real, that they're okay. Marta was quiet. Then, if you see them, he'll use them. You know that, right? He'll use them to pull you back in. And once you're back, I know, but I have to. I'm their mother. You're also a person who almost got murdered. Don't forget that part. Elena hung up. She walked out to the front of the shop. The peonies were still on the counter, petals scattered. She picked them up one by one and put them in the trash. She couldn't look at them. They reminded her of funerals. The bell jingled. She looked up, ready to put on the customer smile, and it was Tom, her Tom, the carpenter from down the street, the one who'd built her new display shelves last spring, the one she'd been seeing for almost a year. He was holding 2 coffees and he was smiling, and he had no idea that her dead husband was in a motel 3 miles away. Hey, he said, I brought your usual. You okay? You look pale. Elena looked at him, at the calloused hands, the flannel shirt, the kind eyes, and she thought, I have been lying to this man for a year. He thinks I'm Sarah Mills, a florist from Portland, no family, no past. And I'm Elena Cole, a dead woman with a murderous husband and 2 children I haven't seen in 3 years. I'm fine, she said. She took the coffee. Just a long morning. Tom studied her face. He didn't push. He never pushed. That was one of the things she loved about him. One of the things she was terrified to lose. Okay, he said. I'm making dinner tonight. If you want to come over. No pressure? Yeah, she said. I'd like that. He left. Elena stood in the middle of her flower shop, holding a coffee she didn't want. And she thought about David in the motel, about the kids in the photo, about Tom in his carpentry shop, about the woman she'd been 3 years ago, and the woman she was now, and the woman she might become if she made the wrong choice. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from David. They're beautiful, aren't they? They need their mom. Elena deleted it. But she didn't delete the photo. She never would. She didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed in her small apartment above a bookstore, Tom's arm around her waist, his breathing slow and even, and she stared at the ceiling and thought about that night. The night she died. It had started like all their fights started. Small. A comment. A look. David had been on edge for weeks, ever since she'd found the text messages on his phone, the ones from his assistant, the ones that said I miss you, and last night was amazing, and when are you going to leave her? She'd confronted him, and he'd denied it, and then he'd admitted it, and then he'd gotten angry. Not at himself, at her. How could you go through my phone? How could you not trust me? You're the reason I did this. You're never affectionate anymore. You're always tired. You're always with the kids. She'd heard it all before. The blame, the deflection, the way he turned everything around until she was the one apologizing. But this time was different. This time she'd found the insurance policy. $2 million. Beneficiary, David Cole, taken out 6 months earlier. And she'd put it together. The assistant, the policy, the way he'd been asking about her sleeping habits, about whether she took the sleeping pills the doctor had prescribed after Aiden was born. She'd confronted him with the policy, and that's when the fight got real. He'd screamed. He'd thrown a lamp. He'd grabbed her by the arms and shaken her and said, "You think you can leave me? You think you can take my kids? You think anyone would believe you?" And then he'd calm down. That was the scary part, when he calmed down. When his voice got soft and his eyes got flat and he said, "Come on, Elena, let's not fight. Let me make you some tea, the sleepy kind. You need to rest." She'd said no. She'd said she wasn't tired. And he'd smiled, that smile, the one that didn't reach his eyes. And he'd said, "You're going to drink this tea, Elena, and then we're going to take a bath, like we used to. Remember how we used to take baths?" She'd run. She'd run out the back door, barefoot, into the October cold, and she'd run 2 blocks to the gas station, and she'd called Marta, and Marta had said, Get in your car and drive. Don't go home. Don't call the police. Just drive. I'll meet you in Seattle. She'd driven north through the night. The gas station's paper cup of coffee gave it investigator Elena had hired 2 weeks before that night. When she'd first suspected, she'd kept all of it. For 3 years she'd kept it because she'd known, deep down she'd known, that David would find her, that he wouldn't stop, that one day she'd need proof. She took the evidence out. She laid it on the kitchen table. She looked at it, the tea bag in its plastic bag, the policy, the texts, the photos, and she thought, this is what I have. This is what I've been carrying for 3 years. This is the truth. And the truth was, it might not be enough. The tea bag was circumstantial. The policy was legal. You can take out insurance on your spouse. The texts proved an affair, not attempted murder. The photos proved nothing but infidelity. Without a witness, without a confession, without David saying I tried to kill her, it was her word against his. And his word was worth more. He was the grieving widower, the perfect father, the man who'd rebuilt his life after tragedy. She was the dead woman who'd faked her own death and abandoned her children. She picked up her phone. She found a contact she hadn't called in 3 years. Alvarez, Det, in the phone's memory, the detective who'd investigated her suicide. She'd saved his number because Marta had insisted, because if the day ever came when Elena needed to come back, Alvarez was the one who'd listen. She stared at the number. She thought about David in the motel, about the photo of the kids, about Tom sleeping in her bed, about the life she'd built that was about to collapse. She called. It rang 4 times. Then a voice, gruff, tired, the same voice she remembered from the interviews after the accident. Alvarez. Detective Alvarez. My name is Elena Cole. You investigated my death 3 years ago. I'm calling because I'm not dead. And I need your help. Silence. Then, Miss Cole, I've been waiting for this call. Tell me where you are. And don't move. Elena looked at the evidence on the table, at the teabag, at the policy, at the photos. Cannon Beach, Oregon, she said. And I'm not going anywhere. Not this time. The video call was set for 3 o'clock at the public library. Elena chose the library because it was public, because there were cameras, because David couldn't try anything in a room full of retirees and teenagers doing homework. She sat in a carrel by the window, her laptop open, Tom beside her. She told him she needed moral support, though she hadn't told him why. Not yet, David answered on the first ring. He was in the living room of the Portland house, the same house Elena had lived in for 8 years, the same couch, the same painting above the fireplace. He looked nervous. He'd combed his hair, put on a button-down shirt, the uniform of a man trying to make a good impression. Okay, he said. They're here. Just be gentle, Elena. They don't know. They think you're an angel, that you're watching them from heaven. Elena's throat tightened. An angel. That's what the therapist suggested, that we frame it that way, that you loved them so much God took you. I know it's a lie, but it was the only way they could understand. The door opened. Olivia walked in first, 10 years old, skinny, her hair in a ponytail, wearing a soccer jersey with Cole on the back. She looked at the screen, at Elena's face, and her expression went from curiosity to something else. Confusion, maybe, or recognition, or anger. Aiden followed. He was small for 7, with Elena's dark hair and David's blue eyes, and he was clutching the rabbit, the one-eared rabbit, its fur matted, its eye missing a button. He hid behind David's leg and peeked out. Kids, David said. This is a friend of mine. She wants to say hello. Olivia stared at the screen. You look like my mom, she said. Her voice was flat, suspicious. But my mom is dead. Elena's eyes burned. She'd practiced this moment in the shower, in the car, at night when she couldn't sleep. She'd planned what to say, but now that it was here, the words wouldn't come. Olivia, she said. Aiden, my name is Elena, and I'm not an angel. I'm your mom, and I'm so sorry I left. Olivia's face changed. It was like watching a wall go up. Her eyes narrowed, her jaw set, her body tensed. You're not my mom, she said. My mom is dead. You're lying. Dad, who is this? Why is she saying that? David started to speak, but Olivia cut him off. Is this why you've been acting weird? Is this why you went to Oregon? You found some woman who looks like mom and you're trying to replace her? Olivia, Elena said. Don't talk to me, Olivia shouted. You're not my mom. My mom would never leave us. My mom would never... Her voice cracked. She turned and ran out of the room. Aiden was still hiding behind David's leg. He looked at the screen, at Elena, at the rabbit in his arms. Are you really my mom? He said, his voice small. I am, baby. I'm your mom. Then why did you go away? Did I do something bad? Elena cried then. She couldn't help it. No, baby, no. You didn't do anything bad. You were perfect. I had to go away because your dad and I had a problem. And I had to keep you safe. And I'm so sorry I wasn't here. I think about you every day. Every single day. Aiden looked at David. David nodded. Aiden looked back at the screen. Can I see you again? He said. Yes, Elena said. Yes, you can. As soon as possible. The call ended. Elena sat in the library carrel, her face wet, and Tom put his arm around her, and she let him. She didn't care that she hadn't told him the truth yet. She didn't care about anything except the sound of Olivia's voice saying, You're not my mom, and Aiden's voice saying, Did I do something bad? That was my kids, she said to Tom. I have kids, in Portland, and their dad, my husband. He tried to kill me 3 years ago. So I faked my death, and I've been hiding here as Sarah ever since. And he found me, and he says he's changed, and I don't know what to do. Tom was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Okay, that's all you have to say? What do you want me to say? That I'm angry you lied? I am. That I'm scared? I am. But I also just watched you talk to your son for the first time in 3 years, and I'm not going to make this about me. He paused. Tell me everything. From the beginning. She did. She told him about David. About the abuse. About the night. About the fake death. About the 3 years. She told him about the evidence in the lockbox. About Detective Alvarez. About David in the motel. She told him everything, and when she was done, she was shaking. Tom sat with it. Then he said, "He hasn't changed, Elena. You don't know that." "You don't know him." "I know the type. My ex-wife, she was an alcoholic. She said she changed 100 times. She went to rehab. She got sober. She relapsed. People don't change because they say they changed. They change because they do the work. And even then, the core doesn't change. The core is just better at hiding." He took her hand. "He found you through facial recognition. He's been looking for you for 6 months. Do you think a changed man hires a private investigator to find his dead wife? Or do you think a man who wants control does that?" Elena thought about it. She thought about the PI, the 6 months, the way David had shown up at the shop like it was a coincidence. She thought about the photo of the kids, the text that said they need their mom. She thought about the video call, how David had orchestrated it, how he'd let Olivia yell, how he'd stood there like a hero father introducing his children to their long-lost mother. "He's using them," she said quietly. "Of course he is. That's what people like him do. They use the things you love to pull you back." Elena nodded. She felt sick. She also felt, for the first time since David had walked into the shop, clear, like the fog had lifted and she could see again. Her phone buzzed. A text from David. That was hard. "Olivia is upset. Aiden keeps asking when he can see you again. They need you, Elena. Come home. We can be a family again." She showed the text to Tom. He read it and his jaw tightened. "See?" he said. "He's already pulling." Elena looked at the text. She thought about Olivia's angry face, Aiden's small voice, David's calm words. She thought about the evidence in the lockbox, about Detective Alvarez, about the life she'd built as Sarah. "I'm not going home," she said. "Not yet. Not until I know it's safe." "Good," Tom said, "because I'm not letting you go alone." She leaned her head on his shoulder. The library was quiet around them, the hum of the fluorescent lights, the whisper of pages turning, the distant sound of a librarian shushing someone. It was ordinary. It was safe. And for a little while, that was enough. But Elena knew it wouldn't last. David wouldn't let it last. He'd said he'd wait, but David had never been good at waiting. And when he got tired of waiting, he'd do what he'd always done. He'd take what he wanted, by whatever means necessary. She just had to be ready when he did. He brought them to Cannon Beach on a Saturday. Elena had said no. She'd said public place. She'd said Tom comes too. She'd said no overnight. But David had texted her a photo of Aiden crying, holding the rabbit with the caption, "He keeps asking for you." And Elena's resolve had crumbled like wet cardboard. They met at the Wayfarer, a restaurant right on the beach, the kind of place with salt-stained windows and clam chowder and bread bowls. It was noon on a gray October day, and the dining room was half full of tourists and retirees, and Elena sat in a booth by the window with Tom beside her, and her hands clenched in her lap. David walked in first, then Olivia scowling, her hands in her hoodie pockets. Then Aiden, holding David's hand, the rabbit tucked under his arm. They sat across from Elena and Tom. The table was too small for 5 people, and the silence was too big. "Hi," Elena said. "You must be hungry. Do you guys want to look at the menu?" Olivia crossed her arms. "I'm not hungry." Aiden looked at the menu, then at Elena, then at David. "Can I get clam chowder?" he said. "Of course, baby," Elena said. "Whatever you want." David ordered for the table. Chowder for Aiden, a burger for Olivia, fish and chips for himself, a Caesar salad for Elena. He remembered her order. Of course he did. That was part of the performance. The "I remember everything about you. I'm still the man who loved you. I'm still your husband." The food came. Aiden ate his chowder with a spoon, getting it on his nose, and Elena laughed. And for a second it felt normal, like a family at a restaurant, like she'd never left. Like the last 3 years had been a bad dream. Then Olivia spoke. "So," she said, pushing her burger around the plate, "are you and Dad getting back together?" Elena nearly choked on her water. "No, Olivia. That's not— No. Your dad and I, we have a lot to work through. But you're his wife. You're married. And you came back." "So I didn't come back, Olivia. I'm visiting. I live here now." "Here? In Cannon Beach? But that's so far away. Why can't you come home?" "Why can't— His mouth, the rabbit forgotten on the bench. Elena could see the wheels turning in David's head. The calculation, the risk assessment, the decision about whether to push or retreat. He retreated. He always retreated when he was losing, only to come back stronger. "Okay," he said. "Okay, we don't have to fight. Not in front of Aiden. We'll figure this out. Like adults." Tom came back with Olivia. Olivia's eyes were red, but she'd stopped crying. She sat down, didn't look at Elena, and ate half her burger in silence. The rest of the lunch was a minefield of small talk and loaded silences. David was charming again, asking Tom about his carpentry, commenting on the weather, telling Aiden to use his napkin. Elena answered when spoken to, kept her hands in her lap, and watched. When it was over, they walked out to the parking lot. The ocean was gray and rough, the wind sharp. David loaded the kids into his SUV. Aiden waved from the window. Olivia didn't. David walked Elena to her car. Tom was a few feet away, giving them space but watching. "Today was hard," David said. "But it was good. They saw you. Aiden especially. He's going to remember this. David, I know. You're not coming home. I hear you, but I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep trying. Because I love you. Because I love them. Because we're a family. He leaned in, like he was going to kiss her cheek. Elena stepped back. Don't. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. See you soon, Elena. He drove away. Elena stood in the parking lot, the wind in her hair, and watched the SUV disappear down Highway 101. You okay? Tom said, coming up beside her. No, she said. But I will be. They got in the car. Elena drove back to the shop, and on the way, she thought about David's hand on hers, about the coldness behind his eyes, about the way he'd said, I'm not giving up, like it was a promise and a threat. She thought about Olivia's, I hate you, and Aiden's, can I see you again? And she thought about the tea bag in the lockbox, and the insurance policy, and the texts, and Detective Alvarez, who was driving to Cannon Beach as they spoke. David thought he was winning. He thought he had the kids, the house, the money, the narrative. He thought Elena was a dead woman with no rights and no options. He was wrong, and she was going to prove it. Detective Alvarez arrived on a Tuesday. He was older than Elena remembered. Grayer, heavier, the mustache gone, but his eyes were the same. Sharp, tired, the eyes of a man who'd seen too much and believed too little. He sat in the back office of the flower shop, drinking bad coffee from a paper cup, and listened while Elena laid out the evidence, the tea bag, the policy, the texts, the photos, the story of that night, the fake death, the 3 years in hiding. When she was done, Alvarez was quiet for a long time. Then he said, You know faking your death is a felony, right? Conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, even if you didn't get the money. You could do time. I know. And you know your husband has the better narrative. Grieving widower, single father, pillar of the community. You're the woman who abandoned her children and faked her death. A jury will hate you. I know that too. Then why come forward? Why not just disappear again? Change your name. Move to Alaska. Start over. Elena looked at him. Because he found me. Because he's not going to stop. Because my children think their mother is dead, and their father is a man who tried to kill me. Because I've spent 3 years being safe, and I'm tired of being safe. I want to be alive. And I want my kids to know I'm alive. Alvarez nodded slowly. Okay, here's what we do. We don't go to the DA yet. We build the case. We get him to confess. On tape. We get the surveillance evidence. We get the insurance fraud. And then, when we have enough, we make a deal. You testify against him. You get immunity for the fake death. He goes to prison. And if he doesn't confess, then we use what we have. It's not perfect. The teabag is circumstantial. The policy is legal. But combined with his behavior now, the stalking, the surveillance, the threats, we can build a pattern. And patterns are what win cases. Surveillance? Elena said. What surveillance? Alvarez reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. Your husband hired a private investigator 6 months ago. Facial recognition, social media scraping, the works. But that's not all. We pulled the records on your shop's internet service provider. Someone has been accessing your email, your social media, your bank account. For the last 18 months, Elena's blood went cold. 18 months? But he just found me. He said 6 months. He lied. He found you a year and a half ago, and he's been watching you ever since. Reading your emails, tracking your location, listening to your calls. Alvarez paused. He knows about Tom. He knows about the shop. He knows everything. He's been waiting, biding his time, waiting for the right moment to make his move. Elena sat down. Her legs wouldn't hold her. 18 months. A year and a half of being watched. Every email, every text, every phone call with Tom. Every night she'd thought she was safe. He'd been there. In her phone. In her computer. In her life. How, she said. How did he... Your sister? He got to her. Not physically. He called her. Told her he was worried about you. That you were in trouble. That he needed to make sure you were safe. She gave him your email password. Said it was for your own good. Elena closed her eyes. Marta, her own sister. The woman who'd helped her fake her death. Who'd been her lifeline for 3 years. She didn't know, Alvarez said. He manipulated her. Same way he manipulated everyone. But it doesn't change the fact that he's had access to everything. Elena thought about the last 18 months. About Tom. About the nights they'd spent together. The things they'd said. The life they'd built. All of it watched. All of it known. She thought about David. Sitting in his Portland house. Reading her emails. Tracking her location. Watching her build a new life with another man. And she thought about the patience of it. The waiting. The planning. The I'll be here as long as it takes. He hadn't changed. He'd just gotten better at hiding. Okay, she said. Her voice was steady. What do? We flip the surveillance. We let him keep watching. But we feed him information. We make him think you're weak. That you're coming around. That you're going to come home. We get him confident. And then we get him to admit what he did. And if he figures it out, then we move fast. We arrest him for stalking. For unauthorized surveillance. For whatever we can charge him with. It's not the murder charge, but it's something. And it buys us time. Elena nodded. She thought about David's face at the restaurant. The coldness behind the eyes. The I'm not giving up. She thought about Olivia's anger. Aiden's confusion. She thought about the kids. And how much they needed to be free of him. Let's do it. she said. The next 2 weeks were a performance. Elena texted David every day. Soft messages. I've been thinking about you. Maybe you're right. Maybe we should try. She cried on the phone. She told him she was scared, that she didn't know how to be a mom after 3 years, that she needed him. She played the role he wanted, the vulnerable, repentant wife, ready to come home. David ate it up. He sent flowers to the shop. He called every night. He told her about the kids, about his therapy, about how much he'd changed. He was so confident, so sure he was winning, that he started to slip. One night, drunk on wine and his own certainty, he said something. You know, Elena, I never wanted to hurt you. That night I was under so much stress. The business, the affair, the insurance, I panicked. I didn't know what I was doing. The insurance, Elena said, her voice soft, recording. You mean the policy? Yeah, the 2 million. I took it out because I was scared, Elena. Scared of losing everything. And then you found out, and I don't know. I just wanted it to be over. I wanted you to be quiet, to stop fighting, He stopped. I shouldn't have done it. I know that, but I'm not that man anymore. Elena's hand was shaking as she held the phone. She had it. The confession. Not perfect, not I tried to kill you, but enough. The insurance, the panic, the wanting it to be over. Combined with the teabag, the surveillance, the stalking, it was a case. Thank you for telling me, she said. That means a lot. I need to think about what you said. Can we talk tomorrow? Of course. Anything you need, Elena. I'm here. She hung up. She sat in the dark apartment, the recording saved to 3 different devices, and she breathed. It was working. David thought he was winning. He thought she was coming home. He thought the kids would have their mother back, and he'd have his wife, and everything would be perfect. But Elena had no intention of going home. She had every intention of putting David in prison, and then, only then, she would go get her kids. Her phone buzzed. A text from David. I can't wait to have you home. The kids are going to be so happy. And Elena, we're going to be happy too. I promise. This time it'll be different. Elena looked at the text. She thought about that night, the tea, the bathtub, the water rising. She thought about 3 years of hiding, of being dead, of missing her children's childhood. She typed back, I can't wait either. And then she deleted the text, saved the recording and called Alvarez. We have him, she said. Let's end this. The plan was simple, which meant it was dangerous. Elena would go to Portland. She would go to the house she died in, the house where David still lived with the kids. She would wear a wire. She would get David to say more, to admit the drugging, the bathtub, the intent. And while she was doing that, Alvarez and a team of officers would be 2 blocks away, listening, waiting. If he attacks you, we move in immediately, Alvarez said. He was standing in the flower shop's back office, spreadsheets of the house layout on the desk, a map of the neighborhood taped to the wall. If he says anything incriminating, we get a warrant and arrest him after you leave. We don't want a confrontation in front of the kids. The kids will be there, Elena said. They'll be at their grandmother's. David agreed to a private conversation with you. He thinks you're coming home. He sent the kids to his mom's for the night. Alvarez looked at her. You don't have to do this. We have the recording. We can arrest him for the surveillance, the stalking. It's not murder, but it's 5 to 10. He'll be out when the kids are teenagers. But you'll be safe. Elena shook her head. 5 to 10 isn't enough. He'll get out. He'll find me. He'll find the kids. I need him to admit what he did. I need the murder charge. I need him gone for good. Then you understand the risk. I understand it. Tom didn't understand. Or rather, he understood it. And he hated it. You're going back to that house, he said. They were in his carpentry shop, the smell of sawdust and stain in the air, and he was gripping a piece of wood so hard his knuckles were white. The house where he tried to kill you, alone, with a wire. And if something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. Alvarez will be 2 blocks away. That's an eternity if he decides to— Tom stopped, took a breath. I can't lose you, Elena. I just got you. And I know you're not really Sarah, and I know you have a past, and I know this is messy and complicated and dangerous. But I love you. All of you. The dead woman and the florist and the mother and the survivor. I love all of it, and I can't stand by and watch you walk into that house. Elena went to him. She put her hands on his face. I have to do this, Tom. For Olivia. For Aiden. For me. If I don't, he'll never stop. He'll follow me wherever I go. He'll ruin every life I try to build. I have to end it here. Now. While I still have the chance. Tom closed his eyes. Then I'm coming with you. No, absolutely not. If he sees you, if he sees me, he'll get angry. And angry men make mistakes. And mistakes are what we need, right? Confessions come from anger, from arrogance, from the belief that they're in control. If I'm there, he loses control. And that's when he talks. Elena stared at him. He was right. She hated that he was right, but he was. David had always been most dangerous when he was angry, and most careless. If Tom was there, if David thought Elena had moved on, if his pride was wounded, he'd talk. He'd brag. He'd admit things he shouldn't. Alvarez will never go for it, she said. Alvarez doesn't have to know. Not the details. I'll be in the car, 2 blocks away. If you need me, if he attacks you, if the wire fails, if anything, I'm there. You can't, I can. And I will. Because I love you, and because you're not doing this alone. Not anymore. Elena kissed him. It was a hard kiss. Desperate. The kind that says I might not come back and I need you to know. When they pulled apart, Tom's eyes were wet. Come back to me, he said. I will. The day before the trip, Elena called Marta. I'm going to Portland, she said. Tomorrow. tomorrow. To the house. To get him to confess. Marta was quiet. Then, I'm sorry, Elena. About the password. About the surveillance. I didn't know. I know. He manipulated you. Same as everyone else. But Marta, I need you to do something for me. If something goes wrong, if I don't come back, you need to take care of the kids. They're your niece and nephew. They'll need someone. David's mother is nice, but she's weak. She'll let him do whatever he wants. You have to fight for them. Can you do that? Elena, nothing is going to go wrong. Promise me, Marta. A pause. Then, I promise. But you're coming back. You hear me? You're coming back, and we're going to get those kids, and we're going to be a family again. The right way. Elena smiled. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. She hung up. She packed a bag, clean clothes, her toothbrush, the recording device, a copy of the evidence. She left the original in the lockbox, in case something happened to her. She wrote a letter to Olivia and Aiden, just in case, and sealed it in an envelope with Marta's name on it. She didn't sleep that night. She lay in Tom's arms listening to his heartbeat, and she thought about the next day, about the house, about David, about the bathtub, about the water. She thought about running, about getting in the car and driving to Canada and starting over, again, as someone new, about how easy it would be, about how she'd done it once, and she could do it again. But she thought about Olivia's angry face and Aiden's small voice, and she knew she couldn't run. Not this time. Running had cost her 3 years of her children's lives. She wouldn't let it cost more. At 5 in the morning, she got up. She showered. She dressed in the clothes David liked. A blue sweater, jeans, no makeup, the way she used to look when they were married. She wanted him to feel comfortable. She wanted him to feel in control. Tom drove her to Portland. They didn't talk much on the drive. The radio played softly. The rain tapped the windshield. And Elena watched the Oregon coast give way to the I-5 corridor, the trees getting taller, the sky getting grayer. They met Alvarez at a coffee shop 2 blocks from the house. He gave her the wire, a small device that clipped to her bra, a microphone no bigger than a button. He showed her how to turn it on, how to signal if she needed help. The second you feel unsafe, you say the word peony. That's your safe word. We hear it, we move in. No questions. Peony, Elena repeated. Good. And Elena, Alvarez looked at her, and for the first time, he looked not like a detective, but like a man. Be careful. He's a smart man. And smart men are dangerous when they're cornered. I know. She walked to the house. It was the same. White siding, green door, the rose bush by the porch that Elena had planted the year Olivia was born. The mailbox had coal on it in black letters. The porch light was on, even though it was morning. She stood on the sidewalk for a long time. She thought about that night, running out the back door, barefoot, the cold October air on her legs. She thought about the 3 years in between. She thought about the woman she'd been, and the woman she was now. She took a breath. She walked up the steps. She rang the doorbell. David opened the door. He was wearing the blue sweater she'd bought him for Christmas 5 years ago, the one he'd said was his favorite. He was smiling. Elena, he said. Welcome home. She stepped inside. The door closed behind her, and the wire began to record. The house smelled the same, lemon pledge and David's cologne and the faint, underlying smell of something burnt. Aiden had tried to make toast last week, David had told her, and the smoke alarm had gone off. It was a domestic detail, the kind of thing a father would mention, and Elena felt a twist in her chest because it was normal, because it was the kind of thing she should have been there for. The kids are at my mom's, David said, taking her coat. Olivia was upset about it. She wanted to see you, but I told her we needed adult time, to talk, to figure things out. Of course, Elena said. She kept her voice soft, uncertain, the voice of a woman who was considering coming back, who was scared, but hopeful. The house looks good. I kept it the way you left it, mostly. I changed the paint in the kitchen. You always said you wanted yellow. And I got a new couch. The old one had... He stopped. Stains from that night. I couldn't... He gestured vaguely. I couldn't keep it. Elena's stomach turned. The stains. From that night, he'd had the couch cleaned, or replaced, because it reminded him of what he'd done. Or because it was evidence. Either way, it was an admission. The wire caught it. That's okay, she said. A fresh start. Exactly. A fresh start. He led her to the kitchen. The walls were yellow. Sunflower yellow. The color she'd pointed out in a magazine once, years ago. I did this for you, because I remembered, because I've been thinking about you, every day, for 3 years. He poured them both glasses of wine. Elena didn't drink. She held the glass, swirled it, let the smell fill her nose, and she thought about the tea, about the night he drugged her. She wouldn't make that mistake again. David, she said, sitting at the kitchen table. I need to talk to you about that night. I need to understand, because if we're going to have a fresh start, I need to know what happened. I need to hear you say it. David sat across from her. He set down his wine. His face changed. The gentle mask, the remorseful widower, and underneath it something harder, colder. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me the truth. About the tea. About the bathtub. About why you did it. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I was scared, Elena. The business was failing. The affair. My assistant was threatening to tell you, to go to the police, to ruin me. And the insurance, it was there. $2 million. Enough to fix everything. Enough to start over. You found out. You confronted me. And I panicked. I didn't know what else to do. So you drugged me. You put me in the bathtub. You watched the water rise. And you waited for me to die. Her voice was steady. The wire was recording. Is that what happened, David? I didn't, Elena. I didn't want to kill you. I wanted you to be quiet. I wanted you to stop fighting. I gave you the tea so you'd sleep, so we could talk in the morning, so you put a sleeping woman in a bathtub full of water, and you left her there, and you waited for her to drown. And when she was gone, you collected $2 million, and you told our children their mother was dead. Elena's voice was shaking now, but not from fear, from anger. Is that the truth, David? Is that what you did? He stood up. The chair scraped against the floor. Why are you doing this? You said you wanted a fresh start. You said you wanted to come home. And now you're interrogating me? Like I'm a criminal? Because you are a criminal, David. You tried to murder me. And I need to hear you say it. No. He slammed his hand on the table. The wine glass wobbled. No, I didn't try to murder you. I made a mistake. I was stressed. You don't understand what it was like. You were always on me, always nagging, always tired, always with the kids, never with me. And then you found out about the affair and the insurance, and you looked at me like I was a monster, and I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle you looking at me like that, so I gave you the tea. So you'd stop looking at me like that. So you'd be quiet. That's all. I didn't want you dead. I wanted you quiet. The words hung in the yellow kitchen. Elena's heart was pounding. She had it. The admission. Not premeditated murder, but manslaughter. Reckless, depraved, the kind that got you 15 to 20 years. Combined with the insurance fraud, the surveillance, the stalking, it was enough. David, she said. Her voice calm now. You do realize this is being recorded, right? The color drained from his face. What? The wire. I'm wearing a wire. Detective Alvarez is 2 blocks away. Everything you just said. About the tea, the bathtub, the insurance. It's all on tape. And the police are on their way. David stared at her. His mouth opened and closed. Then his face changed again. Not the gentle mask. Not the cold anger. But something else. Something wild. You bitch, he said. You lying bitch. You set me up? I came here to get the truth. And you gave it to me. He lunged. Elena had been waiting for this. She'd known he'd lunge. David always lunged when he was cornered. She stepped back, her chair tipping over, and she screamed the safe word. Peony! Peony! David grabbed her arm. His fingers dug into her skin, the same way they had that night, and he pulled her toward him. You think you can walk in here and you think you can take my kids? You think you can take everything? You're dead, Elena! You died 3 years ago. You don't get to come back, and the front door crashed open. Alvarez and 3 officers ran in, guns drawn. David Cole, get on the ground, now! David didn't let go. He held Elena tighter, and for a second she thought he'd use her as a shield, that he'd hurt her before they could stop him. But then the back door opened, and Tom ran in. He'd heard the scream, he'd broken down the door, and he tackled David. They went down hard. David hit his head on the corner of the kitchen table. His grip loosened. Elena pulled away, scrambling across the floor, and the officers were on David, cuffs clicking. And it was over. It was over. Elena sat on the kitchen floor, her arm bruised, her heart hammering, and she watched as David was lifted to his feet, his face bleeding from the cut on his forehead, his eyes wild. You'll regret this, he said, looking at Elena. You'll all regret this. Those kids are mine. You'll never— Shut up, Tom said. He was standing between Elena and David, his chest heaving, his knuckles scraped. She's not afraid of you anymore. David was let out. The door closed. The house was quiet except for Elena's breathing and the distant sound of a siren. Alvarez came over. You okay? Elena looked at her arm, bruise already forming, David's fingerprints purple against her skin. She nodded. I'm okay. You did good. The recording is solid. He's looking at 15 to 20, maybe more with the fraud and the stalking. Good. Elena stood up. She looked around the kitchen, the yellow walls, the spilled wine, the overturned chair, the blood on the floor from David's head. This was the house where she'd been happy once, where she'd brought Olivia home from the hospital, where she'd nursed Aiden through colic, where she'd planted the rose bush by the porch. And this was the house where she'd almost died. She walked to the front door. Tom was there, holding his hand, his knuckles bleeding. You came back, he said. I told you I would. He kissed her. It was messy, desperate, the kind of kiss that says I almost lost you. Elena kissed him back, and for the first time in 3 years, she felt like she could breathe. Alvarez came to the door. We need to get your statement. And then, there's someone who wants to see you. Who? Your kids. David's mom brought them back. They're in the car. They saw the police. They're scared. Elena's heart dropped. Olivia and Aiden? Yeah, they want to know what's going on. And I think, Elena, it's time you told them the truth. All of it. Elena looked at Tom. He nodded. She took a breath. She walked out the front door, down the steps, toward the car where her children were waiting. It was time to stop being a ghost. It was time to be their mom. They were sitting in the back of their grandmother's minivan, Olivia and Aiden pressed against the windows, watching the police cars and the ambulance and the men in uniform carrying boxes out of the house. Aiden was holding the rabbit. Olivia was holding Aiden. Elena opened the van door. She climbed into the back seat between them, and she didn't say anything for a minute. She just sat there, smelling the vanilla air freshener and the crayons and the familiar smell of her children's hair, and she let them look at her. Is Dad in trouble? Aiden said. Yes, baby. He is. Did he do something bad? Elena looked at Olivia. Olivia's face was hard, closed off, the way it had been since the video call, but her eyes were wet. She was scared. They both were. Your dad did something very bad to me, Elena said. A long time ago. And that's why I left. That's why I couldn't come back. That's why I had to pretend I was dead. Pretend? Olivia's voice was sharp. You pretended to be dead? For 3 years? You let us think you were dead. I know it was wrong. I know it hurt you. And I am the judge who looked at her like she was crazy. She got probation for the fake death. 200 hours of community service, and a felony record that would follow her for the rest of her life. But she was alive, legally, officially alive. And she had her kids. Custody was a battle. David's parents fought for it. They said Elena was unstable, that she'd faked her death, that she was an unfit mother. The court-appointed psychologist interviewed Olivia and Aiden, and Elena and Tom and David's parents, and she wrote a report that said Elena was the more stable parent, that the children had been traumatized by their father's arrest, that they needed consistency and love, and that Elena could provide both. The judge agreed. Custody went to Elena. David's parents got visitation, every other weekend, supervised, at a center. Olivia was angry. She was angry at Elena for leaving, angry at David for lying, angry at the world for being the way it was. She fought with Elena about everything. Clothes, food, bedtime, school. She called Elena you instead of mom. She refused to go to the beach. She refused to meet Tom. She refused to talk about David. But slowly, things changed. Olivia started talking to the school counselor. She started calling Elena mom sometimes, by accident, and then not by accident. She went to the beach once and built a sandcastle and smiled. She met Tom, and he didn't push, and he built a bookshelf for her room. And she said thanks, and didn't smile. But she used the bookshelf. Aiden was easier. He was young enough to adapt, to love, to forget. He called Elena mom within a week. He brought the rabbit everywhere. He loved the beach, the ice cream shop, the bookstore. He loved Tom, because Tom let him use the saw, with supervision, and built him a birdhouse. Elena worked. She ran the flower shop. She went to therapy. She went to court dates. She made dinner, helped with homework, folded laundry, read bedtime stories. She was tired, always tired, but it was a good tired. The tired of a mother, of a woman building a life, not the tired of a woman running from one. Tom was there, not as a replacement father, not yet, not ever, because David was still their dad, even in prison, but as a partner, a friend, a steady presence. He built shelves, fixed the leaky faucet, taught Olivia to use a drill, made pancakes on Sundays. He never pushed. He never said, I love you, in front of the kids. But he showed it, every day, in the small things. And then, 6 months after the arrest, the trial, Elena testified. She told the court about the abuse, the affair, the insurance, the tea, the bathtub, the night she ran. She told them about the 3 years in hiding, about the fake death, about the surveillance, about the confession in the yellow kitchen. David's lawyer cross-examined her for 3 hours, trying to make her look like a liar, a manipulator, a woman who destroyed a family for money. But Elena held her ground. She told the truth, all of it. The ugly parts, the shameful parts, the parts that made her look bad. Because the truth was the only weapon she had, and she used it. The jury deliberated for 8 hours. They found David guilty on all counts. Attempted murder, 20 years. Insurance fraud, 5 years, concurrent. Stalking, 3 years consecutive. Total, 23 years. With good behavior, he'd be eligible for parole in 15. Elena sat in the courtroom and listened to the sentence. And she didn't cry. She felt nothing. And then everything. Relief, and grief, and anger, and love, and the strange, heavy weight of being free. David looked at her from the defense table. His face was blank, empty. The mask was gone and there was nothing underneath. Just a man who'd lost everything because he couldn't stop trying to control the woman who'd loved him. Elena looked away. She walked out of the courtroom. Tom was waiting in the hallway. Olivia and Aiden were with Marta at the zoo because Elena hadn't wanted them there for the verdict. He got 23 years, she said to Tom. Tom took her hand. Are you okay? Elena thought about it. She thought about the last 3 years, the flower shop, the fake name, the fear, the running. She thought about the trial, the testimony, the verdict. She thought about Olivia's anger and Aiden's laughter and the rabbit with one floppy ear. I'm alive, she said. That's enough for today. They walked out of the courthouse into the Portland sun. It was a rare sunny day in Oregon, bright and warm, and Elena closed her eyes and felt it on her face. She was alive. And for the first time in a long time, she believed it. 6 months later, Cannon Beach was in that brief, beautiful window between the winter rains and the summer tourists, the days when the sky was blue, the ocean was calm, and the air smelled like salt and cedar and the promise of something new. Elena opened the flower shop at 9, same as always. She unlocked the door, turned on the lights, filled the buckets with water, and started arranging the morning's delivery. Peonies, garden roses, eucalyptus, the same flowers she'd been arranging for 3 years, but now they smelled different, lighter, like they belonged to her, not to Sarah Mills. She was Elena Vasquez now, legally. The name change had gone through in January. She'd dropped Cole, kept her maiden name, reclaimed the woman she'd been before David. The shop was still called Sarah's Blooms, but she was in the process of changing the sign. The new one would say Elena's Blooms. She'd wanted to do it slowly, to let the regulars get used to it. But she was ready now. The bell jingled. She looked up, smiling. The real smile, not the customer smile, because she knew who it was. Mom! Aiden ran in, the rabbit under his arm, and threw himself at her. She caught him laughing, and he smelled like sunscreen and playground dirt. Hey, baby. How was school? Good. We made volcanoes. Mine exploded the most. That's my boy. She looked past him. Olivia was standing in the doorway, 14 years old now, taller, her hair longer, holding a backpack and a scowl that was mostly performative. Hey, Mom, Olivia said. She still sometimes called her you by accident, but mostly she said Mom now. It had taken a year, but it had happened. Hey, kiddo. You ready for your appointment? Yeah, can we get ice cream after? Of course. But only if you talk to Dr. Patel about what happened at school this week. Olivia rolled her eyes. Mom, I know, but you pushed a girl who called you a liar, and we need to talk about why that's not okay, even if she was wrong. Fine. Olivia walked to the back of the shop, where she did her homework at the small table Elena had set up for the kids. Aiden followed, still chattering about volcanoes. Elena watched them go, and she felt the familiar ache, the ache of all the years she'd missed, the first days of school, the lost teeth, the scraped knees, the bedtime stories. She'd never get those back. But she had today, and tomorrow, and the day after that, and that had to be enough. The bell jingled again. Tom. He was carrying 2 coffees and a paper bag from the bakery. He kissed her, quick, because the kids were in the back, and said, "Morning. How are they?" Aiden made a volcano. Olivia pushed a girl at school. Standard Tuesday, Tom laughed. Standard Tuesday at the Cole Vasquez household. He set down the coffees. I talked to the sign guy. He says the new sign will be up by Friday. Elena's blooms. Good, I'm ready. He studied her face. You sure? I know Sarah's been good to you. Sarah was a ghost. I'm done being a ghost, Tom nodded. He didn't push. He never pushed. That was one of the things she loved about him. One of the many things. The morning was busy. Regulars came in. Mrs. Henderson, who bought roses every week for her late husband's grave. The young couple from the B&B, who needed flowers for a wedding. The guy from the fish market, who bought a single sunflower every Friday for his daughter. Elena helped them all, and she was present, really present, in a way she hadn't been for years. She wasn't watching the door for David. She wasn't checking her phone for surveillance. She was just there, a florist, a mother, a woman alive. At noon, she took the kids to their appointments. Olivia to Dr. Patel, the therapist, and Aiden to the pediatrician for a checkup. They got ice cream afterward, as promised. Olivia got mint chocolate chip. Aiden got rainbow sprinkles on vanilla. They sat on a bench by the beach, and the ocean was blue, and the seagulls cried, and Elena thought, this is what I was running toward. Not away from. This. Mom, Olivia said, licking her cone. Can I ask you something? Anything. Dad in prison. Do you ever miss him? Elena thought about it. She thought about the early years, the good ones, before the abuse started, when David was charming and funny and kind. She thought about the man she'd married, the father of her children, the version of David that had existed briefly, before the anger and the control and the violence. Sometimes, she said, I miss the man I thought he was, the man he pretended to be. But that man wasn't real. The real David is the one who tried to hurt me, and I don't miss him. Not even a little, Olivia nodded. I miss him sometimes. Even though he did what he did, he was my dad. And he was fun sometimes. He taught me to ride a bike. He took me to soccer practice. Her voice cracked. He was my dad. I know, baby. And it's okay to miss him. It's okay to love him and be angry at him at the same time. Feelings aren't simple, especially not about parents. Elena put her arm around Olivia. But you know what else? You don't have to figure it out today. You can be confused. You can be angry. You can miss him. And I'll be here, no matter what you feel. Olivia leaned into her. Aiden climbed onto her other side, ice cream sticky on his fingers, the rabbit between them. They sat there, the 3 of them, on the bench by the ocean, and Elena thought, this is it. This is what I fought for. This is what I almost died for, and it's worth every bit of it. That evening, after the kids were in bed, Elena and Tom sat on the porch of the small house they'd rented, a cottage a few blocks from the shop, with a yard for Aiden, and a room for Olivia, and a garden that Elena was planning to fill with flowers. Tom was reading a book. Elena was arranging a bouquet, peonies and roses and eucalyptus, the same combination from that first morning. But now she was arranging it for the front table, for herself, not for a customer. Elena, Tom said, not looking up from his book. I have something to ask you. Okay, I've been thinking about the house, about the kids, about us. He put the book down. I love you. I love Olivia. I love Aiden. I love this life. And Elena, I want to marry you. Not because I think you need saving, or because I want to be their dad, or because of any of that. Because I love you. Because I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Because you're the bravest person I've ever met, and I want to be brave with you. Elena stared at him. She thought about David, about the proposal that had been a command, about the marriage that had been a cage. She thought about 3 years of being dead, of being alone, of believing she'd never love anyone again. She thought about Tom, the carpenter with the calloused hands and the kind eyes, the man who'd followed her to Portland, who'd tackled her husband, who'd built bookshelves and made pancakes and never once pushed. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll marry you, but not because I need you, because I want you. There's a difference, Tom smiled. I know, that's why I asked. He put the ring on her finger, a simple silver band, nothing fancy, nothing like David's diamond that had felt like a collar. It fit, it felt like hers. They sat on the porch, the ocean in the distance, the kids asleep inside, and Elena held her hand up to the light, the silver band glinting, and she thought about the woman she'd been 3 years ago, the woman who'd run barefoot down a dark street, who'd faked her death, who'd hidden in a flower shop and called herself Sarah. That woman was gone. Not dead, she'd been reborn. As Elena, as a mother, as a fiancée, as a woman who'd faced the man who'd tried to kill her and won. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marta, thinking of you. Love you. She texted back. Love you too. Come visit soon. She put the phone down. She leaned her head on Tom's shoulder. She closed her eyes. Somewhere, in a prison in eastern Oregon, David Cole was sitting in a cell, serving 23 years. Somewhere, his parents were planning their next supervised visit with the kids. Somewhere, Olivia was having a bad dream, and Aiden was sleeping with the rabbit under his arm. But here, on this porch, in this cottage, in this life, Elena Vasquez was alive. And she was home. The bell above the flower shop door would ring tomorrow morning. A customer would walk in. Elena would smile, the real smile. And she'd say, "Welcome to Elena's Blooms. How can I help you?" And she'd mean it, because she was no longer a ghost. She was no longer running. She was a woman with a past, with scars, with a story that would break your heart. But she was also a woman with a future, with children, with a man who loved her, with a shop full of flowers and a life full of possibility. She was alive, and that, she learned, was the greatest revenge of all.